Hey everybody, welcome back to the My Bourbon Journey Whiskey Review channel. My name is Scott. If you're already a subscriber and supporter of my channel, thank you so much for all of your support. If you're new to this channel and you're looking for reviews of different whiskeys, such as bourbons, ryes, American style whiskeys, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Also make sure to hit the bell notification. That's going to alert you to when I'm doing new uploads and live streams. Also, if you'd like to contribute or help support the channel, you can through my Patreon page, which I'll have linked in the description below. So today we're going to be doing a review of the Old Ezra 7-year barrel strength. But before we get into that, roll the intro. So from Lux Row Distilling out of Bardstown, Kentucky, this is the Old Ezra 7-year straight bourbon whiskey barrel strength. A little bit of information regarding this product. This is bottled at 117 proof or 58.5% ABV. This is a sourced whiskey. Right now, they've just recently opened up a distillery in the Bardstown, Kentucky area. So they are in the process of producing their own distillate at this point. But for right now, this is a source product. Thought to have come from Heaven Hill. That's kind of what the consensus is, that there is a relationship there between the distilleries and the people there. So that would make sense for it to come from the Heaven Hill Distillery. Again, this is age stated. We know it's 7 years, or at least a minimum of 7 years there if they're going to age state that. So again, just from that standpoint, the youngest whiskey has to be labeled on the bottle for it to be labeled a particular age. So if there was 7, 10, 12-year whiskeys, they would have to label it. If they were going to label it as an age-stated whiskey, it would have to be the 7-year or the youngest whiskey in the bottle. So MSRP on this is very friendly for the most part in terms of what you're getting. This is right in that $40 to $50 range, depending on where you are, in the States. So like I try to do with all of my reviews, we'll go through the appearance, we'll go through the nosing, the tasting, the palate, and then the finish, and then any real other general information. So, all right, why don't we get into the review? So as you can see, a really nice kind of, dark, kind of copper, dark amber mahogany type of color. So, again, 7 years old is going to start to pick up, some of those barrel, characters. So, all right, so let's get into the nosing. So, and again, at 117 proof, my initial thought is not much ethanol or alcohol really on the nose. You'd expect much, much more from 117 proof. But heavy vanilla, heavy caramel. Those dark fruits are really there. That burnt sugar. Boy. Really nice nose. Yeah, that oak is there. But the dark fruit and the burnt sugars are really, really kind of coming through on that vanilla, caramel. They're fairly amped up, nosing profile so far. Really nice nose, I would say. Yeah, that burnt sugar really wants to kind of come through. So it'll be interesting to see what the profile on this will be. So let's give this a try. Cheers. So to really get a full idea of what you're tasting, especially something at 117 proof, I would never judge anything off of that same proof, because something that's that high, it's going to want to shock your palate like right away. You know, there's still that heavy burn, but before you kind of get into judging or you know, giving your thoughts or your opinion on, you know, what that profile is, you know, take 2, 3, 4 sips and really kind of take your time with this to see where it kind of develops. That's when you're going to truly be able to get a good idea of what the flavor profile of a whiskey that's this kind of proof is. So let's give this another try. So again, right away, I would say for this being 117 proof, it's really not drinking like that. There's a little bit of heat initially, but that goes away fairly quickly. It does leave a little bit of tingle on the mid to the back of the palate. However, again, at 117 proof, it's really drinking more along the lines of maybe 100 proof, you know, whiskey, where it still lets you know there's something there, but you know, that burn is not there from the 117 proof. Now, flavor profile wise, fantastic caramels, you know, vanillas. We're going to go through kind of some of the standard bourbon profiles at this point, but you know, that burnt sugar is there. You know, the nose and the palate so far are matching fairly well. A little bit later on, so as you kind of begin to sip on this a little bit, more of that nuttiness is kind of starting to come through, which is very typical of Heaven Hill distillate. I'm even picking up slightly a little bit of a banana note to that as well. That's not something I typically get, you know, I would say from Heaven Hill products, assuming that this is what this is, but I'm picking up a little bit of a banana note to that. But that oak and the caramel and vanilla, those are very strong. The burnt sugars are really there. Now, in terms of mouthfeel, it's a little bit thin. You'd expect a little bit more viscosity from 117 proof, but you know, it coats the mouth, you know, okay, but not like what you'd probably expect from something that's this high a proof. Yeah, and I would say as you sip on it a little bit more, the burn really kind of goes away really altogether, but you're left with that really nice oak, caramel, vanilla sweetness. Those burnt sugars are there. Again, that banana is really, really kind of faint for the most part. It's there. That nuttiness as the finish really begins to develop. The nuttiness kind of comes out, starts to dry out a little bit more. You're left with a little more of the leather tobacco nuttiness as the finish kind of develops. But for me, and at 117 proof, for me, this is the type of bourbon that I'd like to kind of sip on. I think it has a lot of the characteristics that I look for in a bourbon. It's got some proof. It's got a lot of the standard bourbon, you know, profile notes, just amped up a little bit more. Finish-wise, I would say is probably like a strong medium. I wouldn't say necessarily long. You know, because there's not as much of the, not necessarily burn, but that profile that's there, you know, isn't like some that are when you get into maybe the 120s or even upwards of, you know, 130, something like that. You'll start to get really, really super long finish. The one thing with this is, in terms of, I think what's preventing it from being an overly long finish, is the fact that it's still a little bit thin and doesn't coat the mouth quite as well. That's something I would really like for it to do. If it was doing that, I would say this would be you know, absolutely fantastic bourbon, which I think it already is a really, really strong, you know, bourbon, and something I would love to probably have as like, you know, a daily drinker. It just keeps that finish just a tad bit shorter than I would prefer. But with that being said, it's an absolutely fantastic, you know, bourbon whiskey. To get an age-stated, you know, 7-year barrel strength bourbon at 117 proof for right around that $40 mark, you really don't see much of that in this market. I would say they easily could have gone, you know, in on this at that $50 range, and may have creeped up to, you know, even $60. And I would say at that price, it still really would have been, you know, worth a buy for me at this point. I would say for me so far, I guess just going into 2019, that this is kind of set a little bit of a bar. So I've got something to kind of gauge on where we go from here. But for me, this is an absolutely, you know, fantastic, you know, daily drinking, higher proof bourbon whiskey. So if this is something that you can get your hands on, it would be a recommendation for me. I think it's a really, really nice, solid bourbon whiskey. You know, so I don't think you can go wrong. And again, $40 for a quality product like this. I think they've done a really nice job from the standpoint of entering this, you know, into the market at that range, that proof, barrel strength. It's everything that a lot of bourbon drinkers nowadays, you know, want to get their hands on. So if you can't get your hands on a lot of the other, you know, BTAC collection, you know, more difficult things to get, this would be something that I would highly recommend. I think, but again, the flavor profile in this, absolutely, you know, fantastic. So I think they've done a really, really nice job with this bourbon. So one of the better bourbons I would say I've had in quite some time. So with that being said, so like, subscribe, hit the bell notification. You know, check out my Patreon page if you want to support or contribute to the channel. You can there. I'll have that linked in the description below. I'll also have links to this product, the Distillery, linked below as well. So again, with that being said, or like I say, it's about the journey and not the destination. Cheers.